I did.
Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this evening I am joined by Double Denim, Chris McElwain, sporting the original and best Bumblebee top. There you go.
It is. Sadly a replica, though. Sadly a replica.
Well, it is, but you'd need to take out another mortgage if you want to buy an original. Before we get stuck into the football, Chris, happy anniversary to you and your good lady. 13 years married today. Round of applause. If I had one of the buttons with the sound effects, we'd all be cheering. And Paddy is actually calling for you to get a day off in the comment section. I seen that earlier when I was just setting up. He was just saying, give Double Denim some time off. There you go. Even on his anniversary, Paddy, he's here. He's here. Getting stuck in, and there's plenty to discuss. Earlier on in today's show, we were talking obviously about the starting 11. Also, I just need to say this, ladies and gents, we do read the comments. Absolutely, we get a lot of comments on YouTube on a live basis after the live show's finished, right across all the socials. I'm losing track of how many social media platforms there are. And we'll look through them and we answer as many as we possibly can. Also get emails as well. And there was one today who was not happy with the fact that we were calling it a domination. Well, I'm sorry, right? But we are dominating. And, you know, you could go and check your thesaurus for another words, but it doesn't take away from the fact that we're dominating. And it doesn't mean you're entitled, Chris, if you talk about it in those terms. It doesn't mean you're spoilt or you're being a triumphalist in any way. But let me tell you this. Now we are going to go back to the 90s. We're going to get in that DeLorean and we're going to ask the question, if you were going to win 9 in a row, followed by one little season off, and then go and win 4 in a row with trebles, and 6 trebles out of 9 years and all this kind of stuff, would you dare to call it domination when we were in the doldrums? Absolutely. I'm going to enjoy every single minute of this. I'm also going to go back to an event that I did where we were promoting something during the 9 in a row era, right? And we all met up in a shop in Glasgow, and I invited our friends in the mainstream media. And loads of them came along, by the way. STV cameras and everything came along. There was a couple of ex-players there. And I was chatting to some of the Celtic-minded journalists who said, can people not just enjoy your success rather than look over your shoulder at Res 12 and stripping the titles, etc., etc., etc.? And whilst I think that certain members of our football club should have called out all of the above, I was absolutely enjoying every single moment of Celtic's success, and I will continue to do so. Rant over. It's a Wednesday. It was in homage to John Hughes, who's away somewhere in Europe, sunning himself, drinking pina coladas, smoking big, fat, chubby cigars. And I just felt the time was now to rant in his honour, Chris. But I mean, come on, let's enjoy it. Let's not pick in, a certain word, a specific descriptive word that someone uses and say, you can't be using domination. That's hyperbolic, you know what. It's not hyperbole. It is fact, Chris. It is the very definition of domination.
Yeah, I can't think of a better way to describe it. I mean, you could use words like annihilation, obliteration. Dominance is what it is. Absolutely. I mean, you just, if you look at the cold hard stats, right, and the number of titles we've won, not just consecutively, you've then got the season where we didn't, fair enough, multitude of factors, but the fact is we didn't win the title that season. That's absolutely fine. But since then we've gone to reassert our dominance, I would say. And look, if you win 9 titles in a row, you're dominant. You're the dominant team, irrespective of why it happens. We would have said the same thing about Rangers in the 90s when they were doing it. Man United were dominant for a period of time down south. Juventus have been dominant in Italy for a number of years, albeit not lately. Bayern Munich dominant in Germany. It's not something to be derided. It's an absolute fact, right? We are the dominant force in Scottish football. We are one of the most dominant forces in British football, because we are at the top of the table year on year. We win the championships. We've won multiple trebles. We're on the verge of doing another one. That's not to say we ever take it for granted. We don't. It's something that, as a supporter, I mean, why do you support your team if you don't want to see them be successful? Look, would we like a better quality league? Absolutely. Is that our responsibility to make it a better quality league? Absolutely not. It's up to the rest. Come and try and catch up. But the fact is, We are dominant because we have built on the foundations of the success that we started to cultivate from probably even prior to Wim Jansen. I think Tommy Burns might have been the one to set the foundations to actually start really reinstalling that belief. Then you have Wim Jansen comes in, he stops Rangers winning 9 titles in a row, and it galvanises us. And then we have a little bit of seesawing back and forward with our rivals, and then culminating with Martin O'Neill coming in, and we really kick on that era of domination. And that's just continued. And I think the reason it's continued and it's been we've managed to sustain it is because we have a very, very well run football club that doesn't rely on unfair or illegal advantage. We have an effective, if sometimes frustrating, operating model when it comes to transfers. But ultimately, we've made some really good decisions when it comes to the on-field quality and the on-field, the on-field staff. You look at the managerial appointments we've had. You look at the players that we've brought in year on year, and we've continued to maintain that success. And now, just in this past season, we've started to bring that back into the European forefront as well. We're starting now to elevate our game in Europe. Nowhere near what it takes to win that competition, but what a difference in the space of a year our European campaign this year made. We were competitive. We were on the end of a couple of hidings, absolutely, but we were competitive. We looked like we belonged there. We were certainly not outclassed in the competition overall. And I think, it was representative of the hard work that's been done. So, I want, if this is domination, I'm more than happy with that word. I just would like to see continued domination.
Yeah, and the big thing for me, and this is like looking back through the ages, if you like, and I know this is a wee bit of nostalgia, but you started it by wearing the bumblebees. Is when I look back to, the takeover, and obviously our very own Jim Orr, who has been called Jim Dior due to his fashion sense in recent times and his fashion knowledge. He did a play very recently called And If You Know the History, and Fergus McCann comes in 1994, as we know, and everything changes, but everything didn't change overnight. And I look at those seasons, the first season under Tommy Burns, for example. I know there was the tail end of the campaign when Fergus comes in and McCarry's still in situ, but that was never going to last. But that first season where we've had to move to Hampden, 94, 95, right through to Dalglish being the interim manager, winning the League Cup, and the season from hell really at that point with John Barnes and Raphael Shite and all these guys coming in. Those seasons for me were transitional. So how many seasons is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 6 seasons. We win 4 trophies, 1 league. So we win 1 Scottish Cup, 1 league, and 2 League Cups in 6 seasons, and that's from Fergus McCann taking over to Martin O'Neill arriving. So for me, that's really a transitional period between the old regime and the success that we're now enjoying. And I don't mind calling it success. I don't mind calling it dominant success. We get off to a flyer with a treble under Martin O'Neill. And since then, when you look at how many leagues that we have lost since Martin O'Neill came to the football club, it's incredible. It's sensational, actually. So he wins a couple, and then we lose 1. He wins 1, we lose 1. There's a period of time where Rangers win 3 in a row, and then they win that anomalous one, the anomaly, the incarnation that came back, wins that one under Steven Gerrard. That's only 6 leagues we've not won. How can you not call that a period of domination, Chris? 6 leagues since Martin O'Neill came to the football club in 2000. That's the very epitome of domination. And tonight, hopefully we can continue to dominate, even though there's been big changes in the start 11. And I'll tell you something, it's pretty refreshing to see. Here we go. I've used Mike Nawrocki on my thumbnail. Look at the wee grin he's got in his face here. He's something of a cult hero. The seldom seen kid is back, and he's playing alongside Trusty. So at least he's playing in the right side, which is his strong side. What do you make of Nawrocki coming back? He's not had many minutes, but he's played pretty well when he's got a game.
He has, and his most recent appearances, which came about as a result of injuries to a couple of our trusted centre backs, I think he did all right. I think he acquitted himself well. It's very difficult to, in those limited minutes to show yourself to be outstanding or really demonstrate that you deserve a long-term place in the team. But he came in and did his job, did it professionally. Certainly didn't look out of place. So yeah, I'm quite pleased to see him in tonight. I think the writing seems to be on the wall in terms of his long-term future at the club. I don't think he's obviously in the manager's long-term plans. I don't think, however well he does tonight is going to change that necessarily. But I think, what's good for him is that, he's getting an opportunity tonight. It could be the classic cliche, the shop window chance maybe, just to show maybe potential suitors that he's worth an investment. But look, if he's wearing the hoops and he's in the team tonight, then I wish him all the best and look for a good performance from him. But yeah, just a little bit of a shame, because I think there's definitely a player there. I'm just not sure he's someone that fits into the manager's plans, and I don't think that's representative of his attitude or his talent necessarily. I think it's just maybe a contrast in styles, and that's fair enough. That happens with many players.
The big thing for me with Mike Nawrocki is he'll go somewhere, Chris, and he will impress like he did when we signed him. He was obviously impressing as a defender at Legia Warsaw. He will find his place. Everybody finds their level. In terms of his defensive attributes, he's maybe a very good header of the ball, winning aerial duels, tackles. I mean, I thought when he played against Rangers in the 3-2 game, I thought he played really well, and I watched it back because at the time it was such a surprise to see him in the starting 11. Since then, Brendan Rodgers has said that Dane Murray was lined up to play in that game, but then obviously there was a wee niggle with his knees, since had more surgery on that knee, and you really hope the kid comes back stronger. He's only 21. He's had a hellish time of it with injuries. But Mike Nawrocki, short window to one degree, making sure CCV is rested to another, and also at the same time playing him in his strongest position. Let's have a right good look at him tonight, and hopefully the big fella will do himself proud. I love the fact that last year, where he was basically way out the picture, way out the picture, I think the only reason we kept him during the second transfer window was for numbers, because Lagerbielke had gone out to the Netherlands, and we kept a hold of him. And there was an occasion where Paddy McCourt was over, and we did an event in Gracie's. And prior to Paddy arriving, a German documentary maker came in and interviewed us at Gracie's and filmed the night, believe it or not. It's on YouTube somewhere. It was a proper documentary, and it was all about the rivalry between Celtic and Rangers, right? And the guy had said, look, Celtic never got back to us, but somehow through a pal of a pal, we got a phone number from Mike Nawrocki, and he met us in the Brazen Head for an interview. It hadn't been sanctioned by the media team, but he did it anyway. And then he turns up for the Player of the Year award ceremony this season, just a matter of a week or two ago, and he's bouncing about with a white shirt, no tie, no suit jacket, pair of trainers. You know what I mean? A pair of slips. It's like, come on, Mike. He's a bit of I don't know. Is he a bit of a maverick? Possibly. And of course, you've got alongside him Austin Trusty, £6 million centre half, who's lost his first team jersey to Scales. Now, you do get the impression, unlike Nawrocki, that if Scales puts in a few performances, he might be in with a shout of a Scottish Cup jersey. Would you agree with that?
I think so. Actually, I know he's got his critics, but I think Liam Scales continually performs admirably when he's called upon. I think he's solid. I think he's like most players, he's prone to an error or two. There are definitely deficiencies in his game, as there are with most of the players in the squad to some extent. But I think he's also shown that, both in Europe and domestically, that he is a man that can step it up for the big occasions. So I'd have full trust in the manager's decision if the manager decided to play him. But I'd feel the same way about Trusty. If it was Trusty, it was given a nod. We've seen him perform pretty well throughout the season. Again, a player who's come under a bit of scrutiny for, maybe some bad decision making at time, and maybe not necessarily doing the basics of his job as well as he can do. But I think they both have earned certainly enough faith for me as a supporter to be able to play if the manager calls upon them. I think the manager certainly rates them both. I just think it's a good problem for the manager to have. We know what Carter Vickers does, right? He's an automatic pick with the way he plays and what he brings to the table. And you always tend to see the difference when he doesn't play. We never look quite as solid at the back What I liked in the last game we saw, though, is I thought Scales took up that mantle quite well. Showed a bit more leadership at the back, which is something I hadn't seen from for a while, and was taking a bit more command of the ball, was driving the ball forward, and really trying to link up the play. And I think Scales is another player who's evolved under Brendan Rodgers. I think he's no longer quite as one-dimensional as he was when he first came into the team. I think he's got a couple of extra elements to his game. So yeah, it's kind of a toss of a coin at the moment as to who gets the nod for the cup final. Trusty could put in a good performance tonight, and it puts him firmly in the manager's plans potentially, because he is, an established first team player, as opposed to Navrojski. But yeah, it'll be an interesting one. There's one more game to play, obviously, before the cup final, so it'll be interesting to see whether that becomes the dress rehearsal for the for the team that will play.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Kieran's in on the YouTube. Command, control, dictate, influence, lead, manage, monopolise, overshadow, run. Thanks, Kieran. You've got the thesaurus out. Yeah, you've got a few synonyms to enable us to say that we're dominant without using the D word. Kaiser, HTTC, I'm still using it. That's an 87% domination factor. If it was a movie, it would be 50 Shades of Green. How bad was 50 Shades of Grey? I watched it in a hotel in Runcorn. It was shocking, as was the movie. Now, Raymond Ogg comes in. Hope Kenny gives Rodgers food for thought. We spoke about him earlier today. Johnny Kenny's a guy who's come in as a teenager. He has suffered homesickness. He was loaned out to Queen's Park, didn't work out, went back to Ireland, turned back on, scoring goals for Shamrock Rovers in Europe as well, doing really well there. And he's one of the guys that he could have just frittered away. He could have got another loan deal, maybe went back to Ireland, and it was one of the projects that didn't work out. You've got to commend the fact that he's come back and he's fought his way back in. Circumstances allowed it as well. We didn't sign a striker in January, but he's had 7 substitute appearances. This is his first start. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he does. I mean, from what I've seen, he's got pace to burn. He likes to drop deep. Seems quite strong. He's quite slight in terms of his build, but he seems to have a bit of upper body strength.
Yeah.
It's one of the ones. What if he does score a couple of goals? I remember, back in the Macari days, going back as far as that, a young kid bounced onto the scene called Simon Donnelly. Before you know it, he's banging goals in. I think he scored 5 and 10 appearances. Made his debut at Easter Road as a sub. And then we played Wraith Rovers during the week. He scores 2 goals and it's pelting down with rain. Next thing you know, you think, actually, how can we keep him out? It's one of the ones. We've got a £9.5 million striker. He scored 19 goals. I'm going to tip him for 20 plus this season. But Kenny's got the jersey tonight. Let's hope he impresses.
Listen, he's got to take the opportunity when it comes. He's been really limited in terms of minutes because we obviously brought in Ida, but we also discovered that Dyson Maeda, as Liam Carrigan has spent the best part of 3.5 years telling us, we discovered he can actually play really effectively as a striker. So that, really fortunate combination of factors has been really unfortunate for Johnny Kenny because he just hasn't had the chance to really come in and impose himself. And the manager's not really given him too many opportunities off the bench in terms of minutes. He's had 1 or 2 appearances, hasn't looked too bad, to be fair, but it's very, very difficult, particularly in our style of play, for someone to come in, out the cold to play the striker role and really impress, because it is a difficult position. So tonight he's coming in for the start, which could give him a good opportunity to showcase some of his attributes. I believe, as you say, pace. It seems to be, one of his key attributes. I remember young James French talking about his fact he's a really, really sharp goal scorer. Really sharp goal scorer, just very instinctive. So I'd like to see that. If we can give him the service tonight, and you trust players like Jamesy Forrest and potentially Yang, good to see him back tonight as well. Hopefully give Johnny Kenny a wee bit of service and give him a chance to impose himself. I don't think he'll be able to depose Ida or Maeda, in the Scottish Cup final team. But these are the kind of games where you want to maybe try and bleed these youngsters, for lack of a better term. And I know he's not as young as he once was, but I think still somebody that's very much in the infancy of his Celtic career. He'll never have a better chance to showcase his skills to the manager than he will tonight.
It would be great if he got tonight and he got the weekend game as well under his belt, Chris, and he maybe gets in amongst the goals, because then if he's, I'm not going to say dropped, if he's on the bench for the Scottish Cup final, at least you're looking at him going, you know what, he's buzzing. Yeah. He's firing all cylinders.
Confidence to be up, his sharpness to be there. I think strikers need goals. If you get a couple of goals, you just want to go out there and play. So that's what you want. You want hungry, kind of buzzing players on the bench.
But fair play mentally for him to come back. A lot of people would have chucked it by now. He comes back. He's got over the homesickness. He's obviously worked on his physical attributes, and he's getting his just rewards this evening. Plunge McNugget, and you're watching on the YouTube. You would give McArdle the second half for McGregor. Well, I'll tell you something, right? I'm making my second appearance for Celtic on Monday. No, I wasn't a child prodigy when I was 17 under a pseudonym. I have played a charity game at Celtic Park. I'm playing another one on Monday. I don't know why they've asked me, to be honest. They've obviously not seen my ability or lack of. However, if McGregor's not playing on Monday, I'll be absolutely gutted because he plays every other time. And that's a big one when you're looking at it tonight. It's one of the ones like he's just always there. And you think, when are you going to give him a rest? You would hope at some point tonight, maybe earlier, in 55, 60 minutes, you take him off, you give young McArdle another opportunity. Wiry, that's a good word to describe Johnny Kenny up top. He's a wiry forward. Stranglehold Ryan, that's another good word to use if you don't want to use the D word. And Born Celtic are in to say scudding. Is that a better word? Absolutely. We are in an era of the scudding era. Before I forget, someone asked me, I had recommended a book a couple of weeks ago. It's called The Blood Never Dried, A People's History of the British Empire by John Newsinger. That's the book there. Go and check it out on Amazon. I think he's on, I don't know, that's the second edition. Cracking book. But someone asked me for that, so there it is there if you're tuning in. And we'll look at the rest of the team as well. Schlupp comes in at left back. Paddy Sinnott called it today. It's a slightly different scenario with him. I don't think he's got a future at Celtic, Chris, do you?
Yeah, it's such a transition from what we thought was an absolute shoe-in to be coming in some capacity, whether it be as that backup to Kieran Tierney and left back. We still don't know what's happening with Taylor, but yeah, he seems to bizarrely played his way out of contention for a signing. Performance has really dropped off. Looked, previously, from looking at like somebody who reads the game quite well, started to look very ill-disciplined on the park. Wasn't really, building the team play. Looked very erratic and just took a real drop off in form. Don't know the reason for that. Only the player, and the coaching staff can answer that. Could be last chance saloon for him tonight to show that he maybe merits a deal. But at this moment in time, if you were to ask me, with KT coming in, Greg Taylor still undecided as to whether he's going to stay or go, I think Schlupp is, firmly out of the picture just now.
Who has Greg Taylor seen off? There you go. Bolly Bolingoli, Diego Lixalt, Alexandro Bernabe, Alex Baye, and now Jeffrey Schlupp. Has there been any others? There's 5. Now that's some doing. And it's one of the ones we've spoken about Greg Taylor. It's been an unusual situation this season with a left-back position. Taylor starting off as the first pick. Having, for me, probably peaked under Ange Postecoglou, the inverted fullback role, really, really suiting his play. I'm not saying he didn't play well under Brendan Rodgers, but we've brought in 2 left-backs this season. And obviously we have got a pre-contract on a third in Kieran Tierney. So it's been a really unusual season for left-backs. But there is still hope. There is still hope that Greg Taylor will be that player. He will be the backup. Brendan Rodgers always speaks very, very positively about him, and also his influence within the team. And I must note once again that he also spoke about the positive influence of Scott Bain yesterday.
I knew that was coming. We should have had a klaxon for you earlier when you brought that in.
Bainzo. Franny Weldon, Jamesy to finally get that record goal tonight.
I'd love it. That's the biggest incentive in the remaining league games now, is just Jamesy to get the goal. You just need, everybody wants it. I don't think there's a Celtic fan out there that doesn't want him to get it. Everybody wants him to get it.
The thing with Jamesy, though, when you look at it, it's one of the ones where he needs to and he's got the experience, he just needs to play his natural game. He can't try too hard, because when that happens, the goal's never going to come. But I'm looking at Jamesy Forrest and his influence at the age of 33, the most decorated footballer of all time, right? And he's moving into the final year. According to the source online that I tend to use for contracts, he's got a contract up to the 31st of May 2026. Now, I know that a lot of the time that means that Celtic have actually got a year's option rather than he's definitely going to be here for a year. But he needs to stay for a year. He needs to finish his career at Celtic, doesn't he? I mean, when you look at, as a young kid coming in, 17 years of age, no shoulders, he still doesn't have any shoulders. And all these years later, he's been one of the players that's just been there and seen it all and done it all. And it's important to have these guys, particularly when we don't have the conveyor belt of young talent coming through that we did before, those that are embedded in Celtic traditions, the heritage of the club. I know that Brendan Rodgers spoke about some of the other guys who have come in and have got the experience, the more domestic players like Greg Taylor. That's why he mentioned Scott Bain as well. But I think you need another Jamesy Forrest coming through. You need another Callum McGregor coming through, Chris. We keep talking about it. There's something broken. I don't know if it's Scottish football wide or just at Celtic. We're just not producing those players.
No, we're not. And you're right, because Jamesy Forrest and Callum McGregor, they're not going to be around forever. So they can't keep carrying that mantle. They can't continue, for an indefinite period of time as being the connecting tissue to the fabric of the club. They just can't, So at some point, Jamesy will have to retire. Callum will eventually retire. And then you're looking at, well, who else? KT's coming back. He'll be able to do it for a few years. But you need more players of that mould who are really ingrained in what the club means, have came through. I mean, don't necessarily have to come right through the youth development system, right? And we've farmed a lot of youngsters out. I wouldn't mind even seeing some of them, if they your Ben Dokes or guys like that, I wouldn't mind seeing them coming back, because they'll know what it means to play at Celtic, despite the fact they left. But I think we would like to see some real homegrown, club-reared players coming through and really establishing themselves in the team. And we don't just want squad players. We don't just want guys on the periphery. We want people that can come in and do what Jamesy did for so often. We want guys who can come in and do what Callum's done, and eventually take up that mantle of captain, as it were. But just be pivotal to the team and the team's future. And it seems like the longest time since we've been able to do that. We've had so many potentials, so many players coming through that you think, God, they could be the next big thing, and through one circumstance or another they move on, or they don't make the grade. And there must be something preventing these guys from making a step up. It can't just be about getting the opportunity and getting the minutes. It has to be recognised that this club, with the expectations, it's not just about breaking into the team. I think, to coin Peter Grant, is the tough part is staying in the team, not getting in the team. You have to prove that you're worth staying in this team. And that it's a difficult challenge, but it has to be a difficult challenge because we are the most dominant team in Scottish football, right? So it has to be the biggest challenge a youth player will ever face, is trying to make the breakthrough in our team. But we have to find a formula to allow it to happen. We have to find, if we're not unearthing the right gems, maybe we have to change where we're looking, or how we're looking, or how we're training or developing these players. There has to be something. I thought that was the whole point of the pathway manager. The pathway had to lead somewhere. At the moment, the pathway just seems to do a big U-turn and back they go. So
the pathway's led to Swansea, mate. Darn day.
Apparently so, yeah, apparently so.
I listened to Anthony Ralston the other day there. He's talking about being at the football club since he was 8-year-old. He's been at Celtic for 18 years. Now that kind of, for me, that you can't buy that. Tony Ralston's not the best right back in the world, but you can't buy what that actually brings to the table. And then obviously there's that process of that being introduced to newcomers coming into that dressing room, be that young guys coming through or people being brought to the football club. Maestro 95, Kenny seems to come deep. Good to see him get a start. Looks a busy player. Good hold up player. The word busy is used to describe often Yang.
Yes.
Yang got injured. He's back in the team tonight. He's a guy that I have, admittedly, written off. I have never been convinced that he's going to be a future Celtic player, Chris. I really haven't. I think, you know what, he's at an age where, and he's under a coach where he might well prove guys like me wrong. But I'm looking forward tonight to seeing him. I'll support him tonight, and hopefully he plays well. I always just feel, though, that he gives you a little bit of an indication of what he's capable of, but you need to do it every single week, and you need to do it over a prolonged period of time. And if you're a winger at Celtic, you're always going to have somebody else looking to try and displace you from the side, and we've got that.
Yeah, we do. We've got real competition. I appreciate Jota at the moment is out injured, but we've got real competition on that side. And I have a feeling in the summer recruitment we're going to bring in even more competition in that area. Like Yang, for me, I'm still unsure about whether his future is at Celtic. I think his career trajectory is moving in the right direction under Brendan Rodgers. I think as he's come in these more recent appearances, he's looked like more of the player we hoped he would become. But you're right, it's not just about doing it in the odd occasion. It's like he has to do it in every occasion he gets the opportunity, and that's difficult, right? I'm not understating how tough that is when you're in and out of the team. But nights like tonight are where you've got to take the chance to step up. Step up, take a bit of responsibility tonight, take a bit of accountability. You've been in the first team, you've been in you played in big matches. This is where you should be utilising that experience to really help maybe those in the team who've not had quite as much game time. So I'm looking for Yang to step up because it's not his first rodeo. He's been in the team, he knows what it takes, he knows the expectation level, so he's got to go out there and demonstrate that he can live up to that.
Yep, 9 seconds into the game already. So let's go to the action. Just as Trusty gets knocked off the ball by Nisbet, he bounces right back up. A nice sunny night actually up in Aberdeen. Let's hope that Jamesy gets his goal and the others we've mentioned perform well. We'll go and join action. Join us at half-time where we will be talking about the first 45 minutes of Aberdeen versus Celtic on a Celtic State of Mind.
Money hoops.